All right, in this very short video, all I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce to you the idea of what's called a factorial in math. Factorials are based on the fundamental counting principle, and we use this exclamation point, but when we use the exclamation point in math, we actually, it's not, we don't say exclamation, we're not like, it's not an interjection or anything. We're not saying like 5. Basically when we use this exclamation point, this symbol is just used in math as what's called a factorial. It's very, very, very easy. Okay, let's do an example real quick. All right, so like I said, this does not mean 5, like hooray or hey. It just means 5 factorial. Okay. And I'm going to show you very simply what it means. It's really just a number. All right, all it means is to take the number itself, 5, and then multiply it by every positive integer that is smaller than it. So we're going to multiply 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. That's all it means. And then we don't do any, there are no negatives in factorials, so we don't do negative numbers in factorials, and we don't multiply by 0. We just do 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. We take whatever number is right here, and we multiply that number times every integer, every positive integer that's smaller than it, okay? Well, 5 times 4 is 20, okay? And then 20 times 3, that's 60, so then 5 times 4 times 3, that's 60, and then 60 times 2 is 120, and then 120 times 1 is just 120. So 5 factorial is just another way of writing the number 120. That's all it means. Let's do a couple more examples. All right, so then what is 4 factorial? 4 factorial is just 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. 24 times 1 is 24. And so 4 factorial is 24. 4 factorial will never be anything but 24, okay? So how about 3 factorial? Well, 3 factorial is just 3 times 2 times 1. And 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 1 is 6. What about 2 factorial? 2 factorial is real easy. It's just 2 times 1, and 2 times 1 is 2. So 2 factorial is just 2. What about 1 factorial? 1 factorial just equals 1. Now this one's a little weird. What about 0 factorial? We actually do have a 0 factorial, and you need to just memorize this one. 0 factorial equals 1 every single time. And now we'll finish up with, let's do 6 factorial and 7 factorial. Maybe we'll use the calculator for this one, okay? 6 factorial is going to be 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, right? Now, we already know that 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, we already know what that is because we did it before. That's 120. So really, 6 factorial is just 120 times 6. So let's go to the calculator. All right, so let's do 120 times 6, and that's 720. Let's make sure. Let's do 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. That's 6 factorial, and we get, sure enough, it's 720. Okay, so I'll put in 720. And now 7 factorial is going to be 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. Okay, now notice this 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. We just did that right here. So this right here is 720. This is the same thing as saying 7 times 6 factorial, okay? And you can, that's one of the great things about factorials is you can break them up into other factorials, okay? So it's 7 times 720. And let's see here, 7 times 720 is 5,040. Let's just make sure. Let's do 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And that gives us, sure enough, 5,040. And so 7 factorial is equal to 5,040. And it will always be 5,040, because 7 factorial will always be 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. Okay? And you can do it with any positive number. You can do 143 factorial, but it'll be a crazy number, so I don't recommend it. Typically, when you get into larger factorials, really all you do is use them to break up into other factorials. But that's it. Hopefully you have a good beginning understanding of factorials, because in the next lesson, we're going to do other things with the factorials, like subtract them and multiply them and divide them.